Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. It's time to have a look at another Devblog for the next major update, and this time it's the Leclerc AZUR. This vehicle is coming in after the standard Leclercs you have in the tech tree, so at least it makes them cheaper compared to what they were previously. The only real improvements on this vehicle is it has better chemical protection on the sides and also some of the turret, meaning that against stock players you can make them scream, but against anybody who is even slightly modified, the armor won't really make a difference. The other difference is also it has an extra machine gun on the top of it, a 7.62 in a remote controlled setting, so you're a little bit more useful against aircraft and also light vehicles, but it'd be nice if it was a 50 cal instead. This vehicle pretty much is just another addition which is similar to stuff like the Challenger 2 TES, the Leopard 2 PSO, technically a side grade and also technically a downgrade. But the main thing is it makes certain Leclercs easier to research, and that's the main thing you got to focus on. It's going to be rank 6, it's going to be of course for France. Let's get into the history of this vehicle. In 2004, the French Army's technical departments developed the AZUR, an acronym for Action en Zone Urbaine, modernization kit for the Leclerc main battle tanks. This new kit includes ERA protection from the sides of the hull, cage armor around the engine compartments, a remote-controlled 7.62mm machine gun on the turret roof, a mast with a panoramic surveillance device, as well as other improvements. The first tank modernized under this program was first shown at the Eurosatori exhibition in June of 2006, and in 2011 the UAE's armed forces placed an order for AZUR kits for their own Tropicalice Leclerc tanks. So what this upgrade package actually adds in terms of War Thunder is just additional weight. Now luckily when it comes to the Leclercs, what has actually happened as well is they have had a buff to their horsepower, so they will be a little bit more mobile compared to before, which is historical, which is quite nice. The extra armor that this thing gets, even though it's just ERA blocks and also cage armor, if you're hoping for something like Contact 5, well, it's just not going to be the case. This is going to be mainly chemical protection and pretty much no kinetic protection at all. So the other issue is with these kind of kits, you can't really remove them, so there's no way of getting rid of that additional weight and pretty much just having another Leclerc. So this really is just a side grade to the vehicle. There are going to be a very small set of circumstances where the upgrade will be better for you, meaning that you will come against vehicles which have more chemical protection rounds. A lot of them have tandem warheads though, so even then, like stuff like AT gems should pierce through and then pierce through the next set anyway. But stuff like HG, stuff like Heat FS, you know, they will actually get stuck on the chemical protection, which is quite nice. The problem is it doesn't actually improve the kinetic at all, which is what everybody uses. The Leclerc is one of those vehicles though, which really I feel gets underrepresented in the game, maybe because it doesn't have like a full lineup around it, or maybe even just because it's hard to get to the high echelons with France because of the fact that their rank 6 and also 7 is in a bit of a weird state right now. But adding another Leclerc is never going to be a negative thing, and also it means foldering for the other Leclercs, so now it's much easier to research them and also grind them out, which is a huge positive for the tech tree. It's very similar to the British, right? So they added the Challenger 2, the Challenger 2 2F, the Challenger 2 TES, and then the Challenger 2E, which has come in as well, and of course the Black Knight. There's a ton of Challenger 2s that they've added, and now, even though over like the last year it kind of sucked having to research all of them if you wanted to, now with the research changes coming in, you can now much easier have a top tier lineup, which actually makes more sense than previously. So people who haven't ground out the French tech tree will massively benefit from a vehicle like this coming in. Instead of it being as good on the battlefield or even better on the battlefield, what you get is something which keeps the level of the French tech tree pretty much the same at the high tier, but just makes it more accessible for people. And this is kind of the point I'm trying to get through with stuff like the Leopard 2 PSO. The fact that the PSO has been added means that the 2A6 is easier to research and is also easier to modify. So even though it doesn't give you an advantage, which I know some people want, it actually doesn't increase you know, the ceiling of the vehicles, like stuff like the F-16C does for the American tech tree, and also on top of it gives people access to these vehicles in a more easier way. Now, hopefully this can happen with stuff like the AAs, and hopefully this can happen with stuff like the light tanks, but the fact that it's happened with pretty much all of the MBTs at this point is a positive for all the tech trees, and this is just the kind of French version of that. If you've played the Leclerc, you know it's a pretty bog-standard vehicle. When it came into the game, it was extremely powerful, but then, as usual, as over time happens, they get worse and worse because newer vehicles get added. The Leclerc, the S2, and also the S21 all play exactly the same. This vehicle, the AZUR, will play exactly the same, just a little bit more chunky, and therefore a little bit slower compared to the standard Leclercs. Then the difference really is just going to be that add-on armor, nothing else. It's going to have the same thermals, going to have the same rounds, going to have all of the same systems in it, and then of course the 7.62. So if you haven't played the Leclercs, they're very mobile, which is quite nice. They have pretty good gun depression, even though they have quite a high profile. Their armor used to be very powerful, no longer is. Basically, people can just go straight through it, and the round is fine too. The autoloader on it as well means that you have one less crew member, and also you have a 6-second reload. No matter what happens with your crew skills, it'll always be 6 seconds, which is quite nice. So if you get the first shot off, you can be pretty powerful with it. It also has some really nice like smoke setups, meaning that you can actually get a circle around the vehicle instead of just a specific direction, which can help it out a lot. But the issue with the French tech tree is not another Leclerc. Like, another Leclerc does not help what is needed in this tech tree. The issue with the French tech tree is it goes basically from 9.7 to 11.7. You have this 2.0 gap, which is just hammered. Now, they added the AMX 32-105, which helped with this. You know, it helped with the kind of grinding through rank 6 in order to get to rank 7. But you have vehicles like the AMX 40 at 9.7, which doesn't have anything to run with apart from other AMX 32s. Then you have the Roland at 10.0, which is just kind of by itself. And just like things like Italy, where even Italy had like a ton of light tanks and their MBTs that they could run together, France is really struggling when it comes to just variety at high tier and kind of helping it out to play in different ways. If you go past that 8.3-8.7 area for France, you are stuck with lineups which just really don't do too much. And even with the additions over like the previous sets, it hasn't really helped them. So what you end up having is just Leclercs and the Ito. And the problem with the Ito is it's crazy hard to research because you have to, you know, research through the Roland and then it's to be able to get it. And most people are just not going to do that. But when you have a look at, let's say, the American tech tree, you obviously have all the Abrams, but you also have the HSTVL, the Bradley, the Stryker, all of the AAs on top of it as well, such as the ADADs. All of these vehicles work really well together to be pretty powerful. For Germany, you have the Leopard 2s, but then also you have stuff like the Puma, the TAM2C, and the Florakrad, and even, you know, all of the CAS to go along with it nowadays. For USSR, I mean, do I have to talk about how ridiculous their lineup is at the higher echelon of the game, where they just have pretty much everything, including light vehicles that you can bring in. So France needs not more Leclercs, they just need more variety and types of vehicles, so therefore they can be, you know, prolific. And hopefully, now that the AZUR's added, and to be honest, there aren't that many other Leclerc variants that you can add which would make any difference at all, hopefully now we get to a point where we can see more variety, even if it comes in the form of a subtree. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank Brendan Quinn, Vilneus, Character Fuel, Juan the Panda, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Merciless Reaper, Orange Tail, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Moxie, B. Young, Bareen, Peter Grayling, Alan Hacker, Sem Alslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R., and also Lafouche for supporting the channel.